Today, what I wanted to share with you were just some thoughts on how we can motivate our children during this time of distance learning, but also just summarizing or introducing, if you're not familiar with the idea of what a growth mindset looks like. So first of all, let me just ask, how many of you are feeling like motivating your child is sort of a challenge right now? Anyone feeling like motivation is a little tough? Yeah, one of the things that hopefully has helped a little bit is that when we were in what we would call more the crisis learning mode, we really had a hold harmless grading policy, which for the students felt like it doesn't count. Or for many of the students, what the feedback that we got from parents was that their child was not willing to do the work or just didn't see the point in doing it. So hopefully with the structure of the periods and the bell schedule and actual assignments that have points attached, hopefully we're seeing that increase some motivation because our students feel like it's real now. That's a piece of it. But there are some other things that will help to motivate your children. So let me start with talking about that, and then I'll share just a little bit about what growth mindset is and why that can be really an important piece of motivation. So 4 quick tips that I think can be helpful in motivating your learners. And this is all learners, not just in distance learning, not just children, but as all of us as lifelong learners. These 4 things can be helpful. And the first one is autonomy. And that's that sense that you have some measure of control over your world. Obviously, that's challenging these days because so much is out of our control. It's so difficult to plan, so difficult to make promises. And for a lot of kids in particular, that can be a frustration. But you promised, but you said, but I was looking forward to. So because we know that now more than ever, that sense of having something I can control is really important. So what that looks like in terms of learning is it might even be the small things. It might be this space that laptop or that Chromebook is going to be. Would you like to be at the kitchen table, or would you rather do it at your desk in your room? Would you like to stand today during your Zoom, or do you want to sit? Sometimes even the smallest things can give a measure of control. There's so much that we can't. So looking for that. And then outside the school setting, even, looking for other places where there can be some choice involved. So that's one thing, autonomy, having a sense that I have some say in what's going on here. The second thing is competence. And that's the idea that the feeling that you have the opportunity to be successful at what you're being asked to do. When, as we know as adults even, when we are asked to do something that we feel is an impossible task, it shakes our confidence, and it actually usually makes us angry. It feels like it's not fair. So looking for, if you start to hear those attitudes from your child, it's not fair, I can't do it, this is too hard, that's probably hitting that area of competence. And so we look for ways, even if it's breaking down a larger task into smaller tasks, or giving them areas of confidence in things that they can do well. There was actually a study that was done that said successful people, when they studied successful people, one of the first things they noticed is that they make their beds. And the other thing was that they back into parking spaces. Isn't that interesting? And I know the military, there was a speaker once that talked about why that military tradition of making your beds very specifically is so important. And the idea is that if you start your day with a task that you complete and that you can do, there's something in your brain that starts to tell you I'm capable. Isn't that interesting? The other one about backing into parking places, which I don't do, by the way, but the idea is it's a delay of gratification. Because when you think about it, it's more difficult to back in, at least for me, it's more difficult to back into a parking place than to just pull directly in. But the reward is when you go to leave, you're going to zip right out. that interesting? So you look for, I mean, our kids aren't driving, so we look for other ways. Maybe it is making the bed in the morning. It's that little sense of one piece of my world is ordered. I've checked it off the list. I can do that. And that sets into motion. So you might be thinking about your child's world and what would a task that was a little bit delaying gratification, a little bit of them being able to check something off their list. The third thing is relatedness. And what this is doing an activity that helps you to feel connected to others increases your motivation. And so kind of hard when we're in a time of social distancing, and when we're trying to use synchronous learning as a time to connect, but obviously that's limited. We are seeing faces and we're really asking students to show their faces. That's one of the reasons we want to see that they're engaged and we want them to feel connected. So some parents have asked about breakout rooms. Can we break it down even more so the kids can really chat? We hope to work towards being able to do more of that, but we really want to make sure kids feel safe and their supervision, and that they're not feeling on the spot. So that's why we're moving slow with the breakout rooms. The last thing is that in order to increase your motivation for learning, the task has to feel relevant. And that's that whole, why do we have to learn this? I'll never use this. Who cares about this anyway? Those are the frustrations that come from, I don't understand how this learning has any relevance to my life. So what we do as teachers is try to make those connections. And as parents, as you are asking your children about what they're learning or kind of walking by a Zoom and picking up on something that you see happening in the classroom, looking for connections in their world that actually make it come alive and make sense. We talked about in previous Zooms that one of the things that's helpful, especially during this time, is to let curiosity drive the learning. Now that we're back actually using curriculum and following some standards for learning, we can't always let curiosity drive the learning, but even within a standard that's being taught, look for that little glimmer of a way you can connect it to their world, and that can certainly help with increasing the relevancy. So let me pause there for a moment to see if anyone would like to make a comment or ask a question about those 4 tips for motivation. And you can either just wave your hand or use the emoji to raise your hand. Hope that's a little bit, a nugget or 2 that will be helpful for you. So I'll move right on into then just the last few comments that have to do with what a growth mindset is. How many of you, just give me a wave if you've heard of that lingo, growth mindset versus fixed mindset? So I see some hands waving. So let me go over it pretty simply. A fixed mindset is the sense that you are you have a certain intelligence level, a certain capacity, certain things that you're good at and things that you're not good at. You kind of, and it kind of levels out. And so the idea, and especially the older you get, the idea that it's sort of cemented in. I'm an artist. I'm not an artist. That's fixed mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that we can continue to grow at whatever age, continue to grow and develop, and that our brains have the ability to do that. There's what's called neuroplasticity in our brains that allows us to continually learn things. So the reason that's important is because if we believe that, we believe then that anyone can learn and that we are never done growing. So it really opens up opportunities. So we know that our brain changes and adapts to our circumstances. A study was done with London taxi drivers, and imagine what a taxi driver has to do and what they do on a daily basis. And what they actually found is that their job of navigating the streets of London changed their brains, and their ability to see things spatially was bigger. which makes sense. But we have to assume that it's not that people who happen to have that part of their brain that was a strength that went into the job of taxi driver. So the assumption is that doing the task changed their brain. Another study I saw was looking at, I think it was the streets of Colombia and some of the street vendors, and there were children who made their livelihood in doing working at like a marketplace. And because of the job that they had to do, they were dealing with money and giving change back and forth. Their ability to do mental math, guess what, was much better than their ability to do paper and pencil math, because their brain had adapted and grown in the area of the task that they were exercising, the task that they were stretching, if that makes sense to you. So why is this important? Number one, we want to, first of all, challenge you to believe that and to accept a growth mindset, not only for yourself, but also for your children. And then secondly, we want to be aware of the ways that we speak that, and that reflects our belief. So be aware of your own thinking and the limits you place upon yourself, and the way that the messages that you may send to your children with your words and your actions. I will tell you, very common for us to hear from parents who will say, I was terrible at math. I couldn't do it. Therefore, I can't help my child with their math. So what part of what we're hearing then is a fixed mindset that says, I don't believe that I was ever good at math, and it's a done deal. And I'm also relaying that message to my child. So recognize your own mindset, what you're saying and how you're behaving. Number two, praise the process with your children. Focus more on what they're doing and the direction that they're going versus did they get the right answer, versus that final score that they got or the thing that they're good at. Does that make sense? So praise the process is the second thing. And the last thing is really model learning from failure, because that's how, if we stay in a growth mindset, we say even perceived failures can be a growing experience, and that can be really helpful. So hopefully those are things that will help you as you think about growth mindset and fixed mindset. So now I'm going to give you a test. Are you ready? Everyone's got a growth mindset on that says, I can do this. And if you want to, just unmute yourself if you'd like to participate. So I'm going to give you a sample statement, and then tell me if you think this sounds like a growth mindset or fixed mindset. And so the sample statement, the first one is, it looks like that was too easy. Let me give you something a little more challenging. What do you think? Growth mindset or fixed mindset?
Growth.
And why would that be growth?
Because you are not assuming that they can't learn something more complicated. You're assuming that they have the ability to do more than they thought they could do.
That's so great. Yeah, Michael, that's it. And again, it's also, it's encouraging the process to continue to grow. So rather than saying, great job, you got 100%, that was the goal, you're saying, wow, you got 100%, that's awesome. I bet we can stretch this. Let's look for something that will be even more challenging. Here's another one. That isn't the right answer. You don't understand it yet. Growth mindset or fixed mindset?
Fixed.
Fixed. Why, Bergen, tell me why that sounds like more fixed.
Well, the goal is to keep trying and to learn from failure, so there's success in the failure.
Right. I love that. Yeah. And that was a really important piece of it. When you say that isn't the right answer, you don't understand it yet, that actually, if it's said with compassion and encouragement, that can be a growth mindset statement. And here's one of the biggest words that's in there. You don't understand it yet. So when you hear, and you can attach that word yet to help encourage the growth mindset. I can't draw. You can say to your child, it looks like drawing is hard for you right now. Maybe you don't feel like a great artist yet, but anyone can be an artist. Let's keep trying. That's what changes it from growth mindset to fixed mindset. Here's one. You're so smart. Growth or fixed mindset? It's kind of mixed, isn't it?
I think it's fixed.
Tell me why, Amy.
Well, because being smart praises who you are right now, not growing to be who you can be or the effort behind it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's actually, I mean, it's never a bad thing to tell your child they're smart, but if you are always saying you're such a good artist, boy, you're good at math, that's reinforcing fixed mindset. So that's why a better or more specific praise would praise that what you actually see, praise effort, praise growth, versus making it sound like you've got some skills and that means you don't have others. How about you're really talented in math? You should focus on math next year. Growth or fixed? Do you kind of hear that fixed mindset? I've pegged you as you're really good at math. So we just want to watch for that. So those are just some examples of the growth and fixed mindset. Be aware of your own, because whatever we say or do is going to be, our kids are watching, and so they're going to notice the way we put limits on ourselves as well. And boy, I don't know about you, but every parent that I've talked to has been stretched by this process, stretched with technology, stretched with patience, with creativity, with just stress levels. So we are all in a pretty intense learning curve right now. And so this is a great opportunity. If you think about it, it's a great opportunity for us to not only practice, but also express and speak to our children about that growth mindset and resiliency and just hanging in there in a time of great challenge. So hopefully those are some things that will help you, talking about motivating your children and also maintaining a growth mindset. I want to